SRAB project-based learning incorporates 6 powerful practices. This video will focus on one of those practices, utilizing sustained inquiry, where student curiosity is engaged throughout the PBL unit. Students engage in a cycle of developing and discovering answers to their own questions, and instruction is given just as students need it within the PBL unit.
There's 3 main ways we could power an electric car. We're really only concerned about 2 of them in this project.
Project-based learning requires teachers and students to shift the learning experience from teacher-directed activities to an inquiry-based, student-centered approach. The Center for Advanced Technical Studies in Chapin, South Carolina, uses a project-based learning curriculum to teach students about different aspects of clean energy.
So you get to decide, what tests do you want to run? In a traditional science classroom, the teacher does most of the work. There's a lot of lecture involved. There's a lot of independent work. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of collaborative work, and the students might get into the lab and do a lab investigation, but it's very prescriptive.
It's just like a battery.
With something like Advanced Career, they kind of tackle it together as a team. We don't know what their answer is going to look like. And frankly, a lot of times the answers from different teams look totally different. And so that's what's kind of neat for the students, where there's always one right answer in their traditional classes. In a class like this, there's a ton of right answers.
Ah, there it is. Now we got to run it.
I just facilitate the process. And so as an instructor in AC, my job is to make sure that the struggle that students are going through is progressive. It's to help them learn how to critically think and how to problem solve, but how to do that on their own. Because employers are telling us that those are the skills that they want in their future employees.
No, the speed does exist, Alyssa. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a lot of research before each project, but a lot of the research we use is from stuff that we find. Like, we measured the voltage of each solar panel using a multimeter.
I bet you guys can come up with the answers to those questions that are up there from what you've done the past 3 days. In the Environmentally Friendly Fleet project, they've done some research, they've done some experimentation already on electric vehicles. Today we were challenging them with some really technical components of the project, where they used a MyDyno device that allows them to simulate real road conditions for vehicles and do performance tests. And the student teams had to design their own tests, and so they had to adjust power, they had to adjust the load on the vehicles, they had to come up and design their own tests because we didn't give them a scripted sheet.
We're connecting the wires for the terminal cell 2 all together. All these are going to be connected in series.
Try to see
What I really hope that the students would accomplish at the end of this task is that they would have collected some data that was meaningful to them to address the purpose for this project. And that purpose is, we want the students to make a proposal for a particular company for their fleet of vehicles for the future.
Tested when the car's like flat.
And so these students are addressing future problems today in our classroom. And they're getting to use technology that students don't typically get to use in a high school classroom.
Students receive instruction just as they need it to complete the next phase of a PBL. This may include giving students a key reading, engaging students in a mini lecture, or a targeted investigation to learn necessary concepts.
What we want to be able to do today is we want to be able to simulate different road conditions that those people that have those fleet of vehicles could encounter. Is it going to matter to them whether it's a bunch of stop-and-go traffic, whether it's a lot of interstate driving, whether it's uphill, downhill, lots of packages? Yeah, those things matter. This little guy, which is called a MyDyno, you've never used that before, it's going to allow you to simulate that Amazon Mercedes van with a whole bunch of packages in it where it's really, really weighted down. That's something called load, when you load down a vehicle like that. But you're going to get to do the same type of tests and compare, how does that vehicle respond when I have my hydrogen fuel cell hooked up to it? How does it respond when I have my rechargeable batteries hooked up to it? And it's going to cycle through driving on a flat road, driving on a little bit of an incline, and then driving on some steeper inclines, right? Which increases the load on that engine. And now you and your team are going to determine the rest of the tests for today. That means you got to design a trial. We know we want to compare batteries to fuel cells, but we want to do the same thing. in each of those tests, right? Where the only difference is the power source. Be sure to use your notebook. That's where all your tests that you're performing and your data is going to go for today. All right, I'll get out of your way. You guys do it. The first test that you're doing is the cruise control test, right? So it's up to you. When I did a cruise control test, I did it at the different load positions, and I just recorded engine power. But you can record speed, you can record voltage, you can pick what you want to record. That's the neat thing, is you get to design what you want to.
18. It's at 18 on 0%. It's just like a car in manual control. You pick what you want to do. If you want to keep your foot on the gas, if you want to do this, but in cruise control, it's set to a point and see how it does with specific loads, and we determine the data from the speed and the voltage compared to the fuel cells and the battery pack.
The power seems to be staying the same.
Yeah.
It's just only because it's coming out an outlet that's unlimited power.
Yeah.
Speed's at 100. Voltage is at 3.75. You got engine power. What was the load is 85.
It's cool how you can hear the engine power get higher when the gauge goes higher too.
Yeah, when the gauge get higher, because the car, it don't got no load in it. So that's why it goes faster.
Now it's going back uphill and the engine power is decreasing.
Like, you can hear it slowing down.
Yeah.
Because again,
so just think about that though. Like if you're driving your car, right, and it's in cruise control, and there's this big hill coming up on the interstate, doesn't your car have to respond to that, right?
From the data we got from the fuel cell compared to battery tests, from 0 to 50 load, they're completely identical. But as the load gets higher from 75 to 100, the fuel cell is more reliable. It goes faster.
So that technology, at least from your data, seems to outperform the batteries in fleets of vehicles, right? Mm-hmm. Good job today.
What was the first voltage for 100 load?
2.1. Then 1.5.
Then 1.9. Then 2.
Oh yeah, the third one's good.
So each of these groups is in a different spot right now. Some of you guys have totally finished with data collection. Some of you are still in the middle of your data collection, and you're going to have more data that you're going to need to collect next time. That's okay. So I'm going to ask Jackson's group to share. They made bar graphs with their data. Share those results from that test with us, Jackson.
And from 0 to 50 load, it was completely identical. But from 75 to 100, the fuel cell speed was slightly higher. And then I just did the voltage bar graph, and there's not much difference with the voltage. But for the speed, the fuel cell is more reliable.
Great. So you had one set of data that really gave you a conclusive difference where you could say, yeah, this technology is far superior. Okay, what did you guys figure out as a team from your line graphs?
We found out that hydrogen fuel cells were more reliable at higher loads, but battery packs worked better at lower loads.
Yeah, and that's very similar to what you guys found. Now we've got two groups that had somewhat similar results with fuel cells.
In clean energy technology, Mr. Smallwood gives us a short overview of what we're going to do for the day, and then he sets us free. It's up to us to figure out what we're doing and what tests we want to do and how we want to do the trials and basically how we want to run our class.
I've asked him when we were changing it from horizontal to vertical, I'm like, does this work? And he's like, I don't know, does it? Because he just doesn't want to interfere with it. He wants us to proceed.
I think this class is it's very beneficial to me. Next year I'm taking welding just because of the solder, and it just sparked that interest in me.
This is doing school a different way. And I think we're teaching kids how to learn, and how to learn in a way that they've never learned before. I used to think that I had to have the answer to every single question that a student was going to ask me because I'm the teacher. But I figured out that it's much more effective for the students if they see me not know all the answers. And instead I say, that's a really, really cool question. And I never thought about that. But because that relates directly to the project that we're doing in clean energy, I think that's something we should look at. So I still just have to continue to keep growing and progressing with the students. And that's really the message that I try to give to the teachers that get into this, that it's okay to not know all the right answers.